What is the creepiest or most unexplained thing that's happened to you that you still think about to this day? In 1987, I was taking the Greyhound by myself from Toronto to Calgary. I had breakfast in the bus station restaurant and a young man joined me and we had a nice chat. He asked me to come to Sault Ste. Marie with him instead of going to Alberta. I told him no. He kept asking and got more and more insistent. My bus departure was called and I got up to go get on my bus. He followed me and tried to force me onto the bus to SSM. I got away from him and got on my correct bus. I had never heard of sex trafficking then, but now I'm pretty sure I was a target. Glad I didn't get pushed into that bus. That happened just after another sketchy experience with an older man, so I kinda had my hackles up. They were very well-timed hackles. Glad you're safe. My cat used to visit me after he passed away. I could see him move in the corner of my eye, just at the edge of my vision. Or I could feel his head pressing against my chin, like he used to. This went on for years, and basically stopped when we moved. I miss him.
Hey guys, much like you, I love reading people's stories on Ask Reddit. Unfortunately, there's a lot of weird middle school level, just thought experiment type hypotheticals like nice try Baskin Robbins. I don't find this compelling, so that's why I've made it my mission to trawl and crawl through Ask Reddit and find the very best content and put it in your ears. That's why I'm begging you, like and subscribe. If there's anything I can do to help you out, give you the kind of content that you crave to help you get through your workday, let me know in a comment. But please like and subscribe.
I used to camp alone in an RV, and one night I woke up to my cat just screaming like someone was killing him, which didn't make sense. Therese, no way someone could get inside without waking me up, but it was the first thing that came to mind. I looked around for him and finally found him behind the curtain on the dashboard, and outside there was a cat wandering through the campground. That's what got him going. It took me a while to get back to sleep that night. One of my cats had been missing for a few weeks. I had given her up as gone. While on the phone with a friend 100 miles away, who has never seen my house, he interrupts himself from talking about work and says with a strange urgency, "Doug, open your front door. Your cat is sitting on the porch waiting to come in." And of course, upon opening the door, I find her just casually sitting there. We were both beyond blown away. Between sobs of joy I asked, "How did you know?" And he said, "I don't know, man. That was really weird. We had a rescue dog years back, terrier mix. We lived in the countryside on a wooded hillside and owned about 5 acres of woodland and rough fields, mostly wild. This dog loved to be up there chasing rabbits but loved her home too, so would never be gone for very long. One day she went missing. We took our other dogs up there and searched thoroughly but nothing. We had another friend bring his dogs, nothing. We advertised, put up posters, we did little but search high and low for 6 days but nothing. On the 6th day we had pretty much given up hope, but I decided to go up one last time because I had a hunch, a tickle in my belly, about one particular area which had already been thoroughly searched. I took a sickle and a pair of gardening gloves and hacked my way towards the center of a huge bramble patch. It was summer and all I could hear was birdsong and insects, but suddenly I heard a muffled yip. I called her name and then heard her again getting excited. She was deep underground in a rabbit warren. I stayed calling to her until help arrived. The local fire brigade were kind enough to come and help and advise, and we got her out eventually. She ran around like a demented muddy pup, and amazingly the vet said she was basically okay, had probably been getting enough moisture from eating mud to keep her alive. I am not generally a fanciful person, but I just knew in my knower she was there. No explanation for it, not creepy as such, more just unexplained. As a kid I was round a friend's house after school. It was a sunny day, so we went to the park near his house, then through the woods there. His younger brother was with us as well. In the woods, beside the path, there were red berries on the ground. The berries had been arranged into 3 stick figures, which was weird as there were 3 of us. We got back to the house, and my friend and I decided to go back to take another look. His brother stayed at the house. When we got back there were only 2 stick figures. My friend snapped a photo on his phone, then kicked the berries, and we ran back to the house. I have no idea what was going on. Was it just some kind of prank being pulled on us? Changed floor to ground. I meant ground. I have no idea why I typed floor originally. Am very thankful to say that he did. He lived many years after this. Unfortunately, he went on to experience other horrible experiences. Many were brought on by his own choices, but nonetheless he lived his life as he wanted. He lived with bipolar disorder and was not medicated. I understand how this may have influenced a lot of his self-medication. He passed away in 2014 from kidney failure, But nonetheless, we loved him as he was. In high school, AOL was new and chat rooms were super popular. I was 16 when we finally got the first PC and AOL and the whole works. Creepy old men would lurk in generally teenage-run chat rooms because, creepy old men. Some guy started messaging me, he was in his late 30s, but it was the internet, who knows if he really was. He could have been 78 for all anyone knew. I was a teenage girl, why would I be interested? So I told him to not talk to me. He then made a fake account claiming he was a teenage boy, but then he started talking like he did before and I caught on. Why so much effort to talk to a plain 16-year-old? I filed complaints, but only so much can happen when he hasn't really done anything illegal. Whatever. So one day, my parents are out and my brother is gone. The home phone rings and it's him. He tells me he knows I'm alone, my parents are out, he knows what my house looks like, he describes it over the phone. He tells me he could easily come to me if I asked him. I told him I'm not amused and to just stop. He disappeared after. No idea. It was just weird. Still no clue. Amp, X200B. Well, crap, I had no idea this would gain any type of attention, let alone this many comments. I sincerely have no idea what happened. Maybe he was an expert mind fucker and he was experimenting with how to really mess with someone. It worked, though. I have really no idea who he was or where he lived since the internet was new and the accessibility to find information wasn't what it is today. He could have been a teacher, a 67-year-old man, a strung-out whack job down the street, a truck driver, who knows? I just find it unbelievable that he disappeared and that he tried so hard to creep on a teenage girl. We used to have a night out every Christmas with the lads from high school. We went back to one of the lads' houses and were all drunk having a good time when one of the lads pointed into the kitchen and said, "Who's that?" The kitchen was like a box room, you could see the whole room from the doorway. I had my back to the wall where it was and turned to look in, the lights were off and there was no one there. We all looked and said, "What are you looking at?" He was adamant and just sat pointing and just said, "No, who are those two there?" The lad whose house it was looking in and turned on the light and again there was no one there, and we all said, "Are you okay? What are you on about?" He said, "Look, that fella is leaning on the worktop and the other is leaning and pointing and laughing at me." We all kept saying there was no one there. After a back and forth for about 10 minutes, he was describing what they were wearing, etc., and then the lad who could see these people realized we couldn't and started freaking out, tearing up and shaking uncontrollably, saying he had to get out of the house. He was shaking that much we had to put his shoes on. Once he had gone and being drunk, no drugs, that we knew of, we just laughed it off as him being off on one, but the lad whose house it was said he described his uncle and granddad who had long since died exactly how they used to stand and what clothes they were wearing. I wouldn't have believed it if I wasn't there, and honestly I still think he just had a mad episode. We have all met his granddad and uncle before they died, so it could have been some mental moment he had. To this day anytime we mention it he refuses to talk about it, and doesn't even entertain any notion of it. Like I said, it sounds far-fetched but that is 100 true, I don't believe in ghosts etc. and still think he had a moment, but it was genuinely weird and unsettling. Thanks for the awards, kind strangers, so soon after posting. Didn't think this tale from my past would explode. Added more detail, it seemed a bit vague. A few people have asked, so to tidy it up, this guy has no history of any mental illness or anything else. To this day he has a stable, solid career and home life. I know that isn't always a solid indication everything is okay, but after 15 or so years Hess never shown anything of the sort. A friend and I from high school used to go out to this old county road and smoke a joint on a big hill facing a large, old brick house across the street that sat in a large field. The face of the house had 2 rows of 6 windows each, facing the road. One night we were chilling on said hill and looking out at the house as the sun was going down, and all of a sudden a light turned on in one of the windows and then shut off. Then another random window lit up, then shut off. It kept going. Faster, faster. A window would light up and shut off and then go to another. It did it for about a minute and eventually was doing it so quickly it couldn't have possibly been a person going room to room or even a person with access to multiple switches at one time. After about a minute after speeding up to random flashes it stopped. It simply didn't make sense. We both saw it. We talked about it many times afterward. The only thing we can figure is if the homeowner had some kind of automated lighting system hooked up to all the rooms and was messing with us. Other than that, I have no idea. Sketchy AF though. Some of you chalking up the experience to cannabis, I don't think you understand how weed works. I've never hallucinated from being high in my life, and it would make 0 sense for me and my friend to have the same hallucination at the same time.
I turned 36 this year and I decided to focus on my physical fitness, so I bought a swim club membership. The only problem was, most of the time when I go swimming, I wind up getting an ear infection. So it turns out that normal earplugs, they kind of irritate your ear canal, they don't really work, they don't keep the water out. But there is an amazing kind of earplug. It's called Mack's Pillow Soft Silicone earplugs that, they feel great, they keep the water out 100%, they're reusable, and they don't irritate your ear canal at all, no issues. If you've ever had a severe ear infection, you don't want to experience that again. It can permanently damage your hearing if you're unlucky. So investing in these earplugs is definitely a good idea. Also, when my baby was crying later this year and I could not get to sleep, I used the same earplugs and they worked great. I was able to sleep right next to a crying baby. So be sure to click my affiliate link and purchase some of these Mack's earplugs today.
Weird that she was standing in the road. My first thought was that she might have jumped from the car and was trying to escape kidnappers, but if that was the case, I feel like she would have been running down the road and screaming or something, not standing in the middle. My grandma and I both saw a dead person in our laundry room once. So, the laundry connected to the kitchen by a doorway. The doorway connected to the living room, too. One afternoon, Grandma needed a hamper, so I followed her to the laundry. We saw the dead person as soon as we stepped foot in that doorway. It looked to be about my height, I was 6 or 7ish, and totally black. Not as in a black person, but a literal black coating on its skin. It was slumped near the washing machine. We only saw it for a split second, enough time to register that it was there, and then it was gone. I remember my grandma saying, "Did you see that?" and laughing it off. She got the hamper and did her thing, and I just avoided the kitchen for a while. And on a semi-related note, I used to have the freakiest nightmares in that house. I had nightmares so graphic, so often, that my pediatrician wanted me to see a therapist. Ninja, I'm not a wholehearted believer in ghosts, but I do still wonder what it was. My grandma always describes it as the garbage bag because it was about that big, and slouched in the corner like trash. I used to work in a nursing home where I cared for dementia patients. Every patient on the hall I worked on would steal spoons from dinner to give to the kids because they like shiny things. It got to the point where once a week I'd have to go through everyone's room to take back the spoons. I asked the patients about the kids many times but never got a good answer. I'd hear things like they just live here or they stand outside in the snow and look in the windows or they're my friends who visit. Wouldn't be so weird if they all didn't do it, but it was everyone, the ones who were still capable of speaking anyways. One time at 3 a.m. one of my patients started screaming, so I ran in her room and found her laying in bed, seemingly fine. I asked what was wrong and she said that boy is here again and won't get out of my closet. I'm scared. Like me too, Dolores, what the heck. A few years ago, I was at my lowest point in life. Several people close to me had passed away unexpectedly, I was being bullied every day at my job, my life was falling apart. I was past being depressed, I just couldn't imagine waking up another day. So I'd planned my suicide, bought a one-way plane ticket, got sleeping pills, and wrote a series of suicide notes. On the day I was to fly out to fulfill my plan, there was a terrible accident on the freeway to the airport. It was shut down both ways. So I drove into a nearby pub to have a beer and wait out the traffic. The second I sat on the patio with my drink, a gentleman asked if he could sit with me. Whatever, I thought, sure, who cares? He told me that whatever I was doing next was a terrible idea and I would regret it. I thought, who is this random fucker? But I listened. He said that he sensed I was in pain, but that I had an incredible life ahead of me, and that this was not the way my story was supposed to end. Again, I'd never met this guy in my life, and hadn't mentioned a word to him about my plan. He asked me to hand him my keys and my wallet, and he'd give them back to me after I talked, and he listened. I poured my heart out to this random guy. Told him all my traumas and pains in life and why I was heading to the airport on a one-way ticket to kill myself in a cemetery across the country where my family was buried. He just listened. And then he pulled out a lighter, asked me to pull out my suicide letters and helped me burn them. He told me I was worth so much to the world and that after I finished my drink, I needed to head home and get some sleep. He told me I was going to be okay tomorrow, and I believed him. He then gave me my keys and wallet back. I left that afternoon and went home, hugged my family. Got some sleep, and the next day, I started working on myself, finding a therapist, a new job. Years later, I'm in a fantastic place in life, so far from where I was that day. To this day, no one in my life knows how close I came to killing myself. But this random stranger just somehow understood me. And saved my life. I never saw him again, I don't even know his name. It's the most unexplained thing that has ever happened to me. And I think about that guy every day, so, thank you, kind stranger, for saving my life that random September day on a pub patio. My brother had a similar experience of things moving in an unexplained way. He was working at our house because he kept a vintage car in our garage. It was a detached garage in a gated yard and he was totally alone at the house. Hess working away and all of a sudden his toolbox moved across the floor. He was totally freaked out and packed up and left ASAP. That house was odd, it was Edwardian and quite big. We had a couple of other odd happenings. A friend was very scared of an attic bedroom in that house. It did have a weird feel about it and nobody ever wanted to sleep in there. My father-in-law also saw a figure walk behind him in a mirror and I saw a figure in our bedroom. It was a child standing by my bed. We have only lived in modern houses since and am back to being skeptical about hauntings and hoping all of those events can be explained. When I was in 3rd grade I moved to a new town and into a new house. We lived in a camper in the backyard of the house while we renovated it. It was a pretty old house. Anyway, during renovation we found all sorts of stuff in the walls, old bottles, old pair of glasses, letters, old newspapers, old pictures of children in school clothes. It was a 2-story house and the stairs were kind of a focal point for all sorts of creepy stuff. So once you got to the top of the stairs there was a little landing before it went into 2 bedrooms. At night we would always leave the light on in the landing in case we had to get up to use the bathroom. Me and one brother shared a room and the other room was for our older brother. I refused to sleep upstairs due to how creeped out I was, so I always slept downstairs on the couch. One weekend my sister, who is older than both my brothers, came to visit and was in my oldest brother's bedroom alone, as we were all at school and my mum was at work. As she was sitting up there watching TV she heard footsteps coming up the stairs and called out as she had thought my mum was home early from work. No response other than the footsteps turning around and heading back down the stairs. When she got up the look there was no one home and all doors locked. It doesn't stop there. My oldest brother was left home alone for a week while me and my other brother and mom and dad went on a week-long vacation. Naturally he had his girlfriend over for a couple nights to keep him company. One night she got up to pee around 3 a.m. and went downstairs to the bathroom where she said she heard children whispering. A couple nights later around 3 to 4 a.m. the GF woke my brother saying someone was in the house. They heard footsteps coming up the stairs. Since the light was on in the landing, they could see a shadow underneath the door like someone was standing there. And the doorknob began to shake, luckily it was locked. They both started to freak out, and my brother jumped up out of bed. We had some of those dumb display samurai type swords that aren't even sharp and he grabbed one of those and went towards the door. They heard more footsteps running down the stairs and he bravely or stupidly followed down the stairs where he was met with an empty house. All windows and doors closed and locked. He called the police but nothing came of it. This will get buried but oh well. Lol, JK. Back in 2008, I lived near my college in an apartment. My apartment was set back from the main road quite a bit and was in a wooded and hilly area. One night, I was out running near sundown. I'm at the bottom of a hill that's behind my apartment so it was near the end of my run. I look up ahead at the top of the hill and notice 3 guys on bikes just sitting there. Being a 20-year-old female, my spidey senses start tingling. I tell myself I'm psyching myself out and it'll be fine so I keep running. I'm about halfway up the hill. The 3 guys are still just sitting there, facing my direction. I don't have a phone or anything and nowhere else to go so I tell myself I'll just run as hard as I can and scream if I need to. Suddenly, I hear something coming up beside me. I look to my right and see a German Shepherd. He's running alongside me. I've never seen this dog before in my life. I can't explain it, but I just knew I'd be okay now. I continued running up the hill with this random dog beside me. When we're approaching the guys, this dog gets slightly ahead of me and runs directly in front of me instead of to my right. He gets to the guys and stops dead in his tracks. I continue running and pass the guys without even making eye contact. Once I'm past the guys, the dog catches back up to me and continues running alongside me. He stays with me until I take the turn into my apartment's very well-lit parking lot. He disappears into the trees as quickly as he appeared. I took that route at the same exact time every single day after that for weeks and would drive down that road often, hoping to come across him again. No luck. I never saw him again. My friends are all convinced he was a guardian angel making sure I stayed safe. I'm not really a believer so IDK, but it's the most creepy, bizarre, and awesome thing to ever happen to me. GT, I once woke up in a tent in the middle of the night. Holy fuck. GT, while camping in the Upper Peninsula with my friends. Oh, I really should finish reading the sentence. Voices can carry for quite a ways at night. He might have been a quarter mile or more away. If it's a popular campsite, the hat might just be coincidental. Might be a witness protection type of situation and they had to get the family out immediately because they were discovered? I know the marshals, not the FBI, do this kind of work. But, federal agencies do not work in silos in emergencies. The fact that OP knew who the local chief was and they went out on the call could be an indication that it might have been a small town where federal resources might be minimal. Thank you for the helpful award. I was probably about 16 to 17 and had just gotten home from high school. My brother was in the kitchen making a ruckus, so I started that way. As I passed by his bedroom, I saw my mom in there, sitting on his bed with the lights off, facing away from me and towards the wall. I stopped and stood in the doorway and asked if she was okay, and what she was doing. She said really slowly, "Just sitting. Come here, I need to talk to you." I took about a half step into the room when I heard my mom yelling for me in the kitchen and then saw her setting the table. I looked back to the bedroom and there was nothing there. I don't think I ever went back into that room by myself again, even 10 years later. Another story from the same house, since people seem to find this one interesting. One day my mom and I were out doing yard work in the front of the house. At the time we had a trampoline that sat in front of my bedroom window, which faced the driveway road. My two little brothers were bouncing on it, they were probably 7 and 9 at the time, and my mom and I had sat down in a pair of lawn chairs to take break. We were watching my little brothers play when suddenly they both stopped jumping and walked to the edge of the trampoline closest to my bedroom window and sat down, facing the window. They both started talking, but they were speaking as if they were having a conversation that we were only privy to half of. The older one, S, said something like, "Yes, yeah, they're good, no, okay." As if he was replying to someone asking him questions. My mom and I looked at each other like, "Are you hearing this right now?" And she asked them, "Who are you guys talking to?" Without looking away from the window, S said, "She says it's great-grandma. She says she misses you." My great-grandmother had died before my little brothers had been born. They had no idea what she looked like. My mom replied, "Great-grandma is in heaven, baby." To which he looked over at us and said, "Not anymore." They stared at the wall for a little longer and then started playing again as if nothing had ever happened. This was, again, one of many incidents that happened at that house. I left Florida in 2017, and while I've visited the family home many times since leaving, I'll never stay there at night by myself. And I try very hard not to leave the room I stay in.
I turned 36 this year, and I decided to focus on my physical fitness, so I bought a swim club membership. The only problem was, most of the time when I go swimming, I wind up getting an ear infection. So, it turns out that normal earplugs, they kind of irritate your ear canal, they don't really work, they don't keep the water out, but there is an amazing kind of earplug. It's called Mack's Pillow Soft Silicone earplugs that, they feel great, they keep the water out 100%, they're reusable, and they don't irritate your ear canal at all, no issues. If you've ever had a severe ear infection, you don't want to experience that again. It can permanently damage your hearing if you're unlucky. So, investing in these earplugs is definitely a good idea. Also, when my baby was crying later this year and I could not get to sleep, I used the same earplugs and they worked great. I was able to sleep right next to a crying baby. So be sure to click my affiliate link and purchase some of these Mack's earplugs today.
I was walking my dog once around the pond in my grandmother's condominium gated community. It was supposed to storm that night, so it was windy all day. Like tree branches violently flailing around and small items being blown away. I got to the front of my grandmother building, there wasn't a soul in sight, and suddenly it got really quiet. Which was weird because it was literally windy all day, but the wind suddenly stopped. I sort of looked around and felt off, it was the kind of quiet you could hear. Suddenly a big gust of wind comes in and my dog starts freaking out. I tug him to come towards the building so I could put the code in to get us inside when suddenly I hear a voice go, "Hey," right behind me. It felt like it was right next to my ear. I turned around and there still wasn't anyone there. And my dog was still freaking out. So I dragged him inside, ran up the flight of stairs to my grandma's condo and locked the door. I still have no idea what happened to this day. I should mention the gated community has a lot of buildings with geriatric folks living in it beyond my grandmother's condo. The area was used during the tuberculosis outbreak to bring patients to basically die, and they would cremate their bodies in a now abandoned building at the center of the gated community. I've also seen shadows in the window of the tower whenever I went to the park nearby. I was camping at the top of a mountain in Turkey close to a mass grave of some unfortunate pilgrims. Late at night a large dog, probably a Congal, wandered into vicinity of my tent and woke me up with its howl. It then circled my tent making growling and crunching noises. Never before have I been so aware that a tent is nothing but a very thin layer of synthetic fabric. I was so terrified of drawing attention to myself I stayed frozen in place in my tent for hours. In the morning I found my trash had been pulled out from under my tent's fly. A few years ago, I took my dog out for a walk at night. The apartment complex I lived in at the time had enough light outside, so I was never scared of going out for a little walk. One night, as I walked down the stairs, I noticed a large brown furry thing under the stairs. I know for a fact there was 3 thin bushes under those stairs, but that night, whatever that thing is, was in between those bushes. I was too afraid to inspect it, so I walked the dog around the neighborhood for 5 minutes. When I got back, the large brown thing was gone. I stood there for a second before gathering up the courage to go up the stairs. My dog, however, refused to go up. I scooped him up and ran up the stairs into the comfort of my own home. A few days later I sat in the living room minding my own business. From the corner of my eye, I saw something brown and furry crawl from the ceiling into my room. That night, I had a dream I was being attacked by an unknown creature. I covered myself in my blanket and it scratched and tore at it, yelling obscenities at me. I got angry and launched myself at it, punching and scratching at a large brown furry creature. When I woke up, my dog was there watching me and whining. I'd quit to even think this was. Wow, I honestly expected this comment to get buried. Thanks to all of your input. I actually spoke to my mom about this. And what she said scares me even more. She has seen it crawl into rooms. But like me, chalked it up to her hair in her eye or something. However, she told me she also dreamt of it. In her dream, she was paralyzed, it was running around her and taunting her. She tried so hard to start praying, but the words wouldn't come out. It got close to her face, she stared deeply into its demonic red eyes. She felt its fur touch her skin. When she broke out of her dream, my dog was staring at her, very close to her face. My dog almost got punched. Lamau, my mom's defense when she gets scared. So yeah. I guess we did see something in that apartment. Whatever it is, I'm glad we moved out and it didn't follow us. I have things like this happen to me occasionally. I will dream a mundane conversation or activity and a few months later I will be halfway through said action or conversation when the dream flashes back into my head. Despite knowing what is going to happen next, I am unable to change any of it. The most memorable occurred when I was about 14 or 15. I played soccer at the time, and I had a dream about being in front of a mirror, like where the mirror and sink are separate from the rest of the bathroom like at a hotel, and I was brushing my hair and putting it up like I always did before games. I quickly forgot about it, and a few weeks later I accepted a position on a team that would be going to a national tournament in Tennessee. Flash forward like 6 months and I am in the hotel brushing my hair exactly like in the dream. The mirror, sink, and room are exactly the same. Nothing else eventful happens and I shake off the uncomfortable feeling and move on with my day. I talked to my dad about it at dinner one night that week and he has said that it happens to him sometimes as well. Thank you everyone for all of the kind words and awards. This is the first time that I've had a post blow up like this. I've really enjoyed reading all of your similar experiences, and it really makes one think about what is going on in the world. P.S. To all of the naysayers, I'm sorry that you've never experienced this phenomenon, but maybe stop diagnosing people over the internet on a post where no one was asking for advice. I promise that I have never had a single symptom related to seizures, and I'm not dying. I just have had some strange dreams that came true. It is a phenomenon that, while a bit unnerving, is completely harmless and only happens occasionally, and a lot less as I've gotten older. My brother was a kid like this. We lived really rural, but he was always building himself computers and stealing electricity from neighbors and schools, getting in trouble for messing with computers at school all the time, etc. Very gifted with programming and robotics. He was always up to something. One day when he was around 16 or 17, 2 Stetson guys in official-looking suits showed up to talk to him and my mom. At our homestead. In rural Alaska, an hour out of the nearest town. They never talked afterwards about what the men wanted, but my mom made him throw out all his computer stuff and he was grounded for a long time. A year later, out of nowhere he was offered a full-ride scholarship to MIT with some promises of jobs. My mom made a huge deal out of it. He had a pregnant girlfriend by then and opted to move with her to Kansas instead. I've asked him a few times since what the government guys had talked to him about, but he just clams up.
This year, like I said, I'm having a midlife crisis. I've started a YouTube channel and I'm on a big health kick. One thing that I found is very easy to eat, very easy to prepare, is I heat up chickpeas with chicken broth and tikka masala. And there are two schools of thought about how you should eat beans. Some people believe you should buy the dry beans and soak them. but I tried that and it was a disaster. So I buy canned beans every time. And if I'm opening like 2 cans a day to be on this diet, it is a massive pain in the ass if the can has this jagged metal edge. I'm worried if like little bits of metal are getting into my food, I'm going to slice up my intestines. So I found this special can opener that actually opens the can in a way that is completely safe, no metal's getting in your food, and it is 1,000 times better than any other can opener I've ever used. So if you wind up, opening a lot of cans for whatever reason, maybe you've got a cat or something, you must buy this can opener from my affiliate link.